Welcome to the demo for week 2. Now, normally I will not record the demos I do in class, but it just so happens that some of my classes have this week off because of the holiday. So those of you who saw the demo and you need a refresher, this is here for you, but mainly this is for those of you who missed the demo. Now, I want to be clear, there are lots of videos showing you how to do the various things I'm going to show you in this demo. So in order to keep the length of this video a little shorter, I'm not going to cover things super specifically. So here's my advice, is watch the videos from this week and next week's class before you watch this and attempt to do this project. That will make this video much more understandable to you.
Yes, dear.
All right, so here we have a folder that I have downloaded from Titanium. So this would be under week 2. So just download that and it will either decompress or it won't. If it doesn't decompress, just double click on it. You will find inside the folder, once it is decompressed, a PDF file and a couple of Photoshop files. So I told you last week that you needed to bring in 2 pictures of yourself, 2 digital pictures. For those of you who are in class, there's always a few who don't bring in their picture, so I supply pictures that you can use in your layouts. But you should be using your pictures. So especially those of you doing this at home, make sure you use pictures of yourself. So this project has 2 purposes. Number 1 is just to introduce you to Illustrator and some basic functionality of it. Number 2, it's a way for me to start to try to learn your names. So the third file in here is a PDF file. So let me open up this, and this is what we're going to be creating within Illustrator today. So we're going to bring in a couple of pictures, we're going to create some type, we're going to create a black box, and then we are going to change the stacking order over here to make sure that the picture and the type is on top of the box. So I'm going to close this and we're actually going to start right from scratch. And so let me get Illustrator open. And so we're just going to create a new file by clicking on this button over here to the left. We're going to go right to the print area, this button at the top, and then we're going to choose letter size over on the left. And then over here on the right, points, we're not going to use the points measurement system. We're going to choose inches. And then very important, change your orientation to horizontal. And we only need 1 artboard for this, so you can leave that at 1. And then finally, click Create. The first thing I want to do is get in those pictures, which will allow us to talk about a few different things. So I'm going to go to the File menu and pull down to Place. And then I am going to navigate to the desktop, find that folder, and then here are the 2 here are the 2 pictures I would like to insert. This is my cat. You've heard that thing where owners and their pets often start to look alike. I think that's kind of true here. Now, with this, I get a loaded icon. And so that just means it gives me a little preview of what picture is going to show up when I click. So I'm just going to click right here. You'll notice that the picture is bigger than I need it to be by quite a bit. You'll also notice that this picture has a big X through it, and that it should have these little white squares on each corner and in the middle of each side. Now, if for some reason when you bring your picture in here it doesn't look like that, that means you don't have what's called the bounding box showing. Now, the reason the bounding box is so important is because it allows you to do a lot of really basic things like resize and rotate, much nicer than having to go and access, the resize tool and the rotate tool. So I'd leave the bounding box turned on all the time. Now, when we're working, the primary tool we're going to use is the black arrow tool, which is right here on the top. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of tools here that have very specific functionality, but the black arrow tool is very basically just a move tool. And it also shows the bounding box. You'll notice if I switch to the white arrow, the bounding box goes away. So back to the black arrow. And so if I hover over one of these corner shapes, then you'll notice that my icon changes. And so if I click and hold and drag now, you'll see that I can easily resize this image.
Oops.
Now, there's a big problem with what I did just there because I resized it disproportionately, which you never want to do. And so I'm going to undo that. That is under the Edit menu, or you can go to Command Z, Control Z on a PC. And then what I need to do this time is click on a handle, but before I drag, press down the Shift key. And that will allow me to constrain my reduction or enlargement to a particular size. If I just want to move this to a different place on the page, I just pull my arrow to the middle of the picture, and I can click and hold and drag and put that wherever I want. Now I want to get these to a specific size. So how can I do that?
I don't know.
Well, I'm going to show you in a minute how to bring in rulers and guides, but let me take you over here to the right and make sure your Properties tab is active. This is really amazing because this is contextual based on whatever tool you have active and whatever you have selected on the artboard. So right here you'll see this is my X and Y coordinates telling me where it is located on the page. And over here is your width and your height telling you how big the picture is. Now, very important, this little chain link symbol here is currently turned on. And so that means if I change one dimension, the other dimension will change automatically to stay in proportion. If I click on that, I will get a little line through it. And now if I change one dimension, you'll notice that the other dimension does not change. And therefore, you have disproportioned it yet again. So let me undo that. And then I'm going to click on that link symbol. So I know ultimately I would like to make this size be 2 inches. So I'm just going to go up here to the width, type in a 2, hit the tab key, and that will reduce the whole thing down to the right size. That might be a little small, so let's try it at 3 inches, see how that works. Yeah, that seems better. Now, let's go ahead and get those guides in here so we can start aligning things on the page, and then I'll show you a shortcut. So again, kind of confirming the black arrow is selected, then I can go to the View menu, pull down to Rulers, and say Show Rulers. So this is going to be a ruler at the top and on the side, and this allows me to pull guides into the page that I can align things to. So I want to pull a couple of guides from the left-hand ruler. This is the vertical ruler. And I want to pull one of them to 5.5 inches, which is right here, and that's exactly the middle of the page. So to do that, I'm going to click with the tip of the arrow right in the middle of that left-hand ruler, and then just hold it and drag. Just pull that over till I align to 5.5. Beautiful.
Groovy.
I then want to pull another one over to 2.75, which is going to be right here, which is basically the halfway point between the middle and the left-hand side. So 2.75. And then finally, I want to pull one more down from the top. And so put the tip of my arrow in that top ruler and pull that down to 2. And so what's nice about this is this allows me now to align what I need to align. So I want this picture to be centered to this line and the top of it to align to this top guide here. So I'm going to click and hold on the picture and I'm going to pull down. And you're going to notice some things. You're going to notice some pink little lines show up, some pink little type show up, and those are what are called smart guides. And smart guides are amazing. So I'm going to go back to View again, pull down to Smart Guides, and you'll notice that mine is turned on. It has a check mark next to it. So if yours doesn't, then just click on it to make that active. And then as you pull things around, you'll start to see that not only do things snap into position, but you'll get these little visual clues for when you are centered. So for instance, you'll see the word center right in the middle of the picture. So that tells me that that picture is exactly where I want it to be. Okay, so let's bring in the other picture now, and I'm going to show you a different way to arrange that. So File, Place, Pickles 2 this time. And he looks very, well, Pickles is a very philosophical cat. Actually quite smart, definitely smarter than the dog. But let's not get into that territory. I'm going to click on Pickles 2 here with my black arrow tool, and I'm going to immediately just go over here. And I want this to be 3 inches. I believe I made that. So make sure that the link symbol is active. And you'll notice something interesting, that when I resized it, it resized from the middle. So why was that?
I don't want to know.
Undo that. Well, because over here is this little orientation block, this little grid. And wherever you click on that will establish the point that the transformation will occur from. So I've clicked the upper left box, which is normally where I keep it. And you'll notice that if I change the size now, it will reduce from that point right there. And so depending on what you're trying to do will determine which orientation is going to work best for you. Now in terms of positioning this, now I could pull another guide in to, what would that be, 3/4, 1, 2, 8 1/4, and that would give me the middle of this side. But let me show you something that's really cool. If I go to here, so I mark that top middle spot, this guide is at 2 inches tall, right? So that's the Y. And so Y goes up and down. So if I change this to 2, boom, that immediately goes right into position. And so if I know that 8 1/4 is the middle of this, you'll see right now it's at 8. So I can go in and I can just change this to 8.25, and that is immediately in exactly the right position. So you can see there's like 2 or 3 different ways that you can do this. It doesn't matter which way you do it. What matters is which technique you like the best. I usually do a combination of both. So next thing I want to do is use the rectangle tool. So I'm going to go here. I don't need my ruler anymore. I'm just going to go to rulers and say hide rulers. And I'm also going to go down and go to the guides. And you'll see you have all kinds of controls for the guides. So you can lock and unlock them. You can hide them temporarily, or you can just clear them out of the way. I'll just hide them for now because I might need them again, who knows. But that allows me to see my layout unobstructed without all those blue lines. Okay, so my rectangle tool. Again, there's different ways I could do it. I could bring my guides back and draw a box relative to the guides. That's actually quite simple to do. But let me show you another way. I'm just going to draw a box. I'm not going to worry too much about what size it is. And by the way, if you don't see your rectangle tool over here, if you see a circle or a star, say, well, that just means your rectangle tool is currently hidden. If you click and hold on this, it will drop this related submenu of shape tools and just choose rectangle from the top. I'm now going to go back and get my black arrow tool. I don't need the rectangle tool anymore. And I want you to notice that down here at the bottom of the tool palette, there are 2 boxes. Right now, the top left one is white and the bottom right one has an outline of black. And so that's telling you what the attributes are of this shape. It is currently filled with white. If I pull this over so it's over the background here, you can see that. And if I unmark it, you'll see that it does indeed have a black outline. If I click on it again and I go over here, you'll notice that here are a fill and stroke boxes. So I actually don't want a stroke on this. You'll see this is currently 1 point thick. But I'm just going to go to stroke and I can click right here on this little box and that will open up the swatches window. And I just want to click on this, which is the universal symbol for none. So I'm going to click on that shape to close it. And then if I unmark it, you'll see, yep, that is definitely gone. Now I want this to be filled with black. So I'm going to click on the fill square, and I'm just going to click on the black button. Now you'll notice right away there is a problem. The box is on top of the picture. In fact, if your box was over here, you might even think your picture disappeared. But panic not. I will show you how to fix that in a minute. But first, let's get this to the right size and position. So with the box marked with my arrow tool, I'm going to go to my transform area, and I'm going to click on the upper left grid. And then I want to change the size of this to be a width of 5.5 and I want the height of this to be, oh, I kept it in proportion, no biggie. I need to unlock that proportion lock and change that to now be 8.5. Whoops, 805. I think that might be a bit excessive. There we go. And so now that's the right size, and I could just drag this into position. You'll notice it will kind of snap easily into the place it's supposed to be. But again, if you'd prefer to just type in numbers up here, upper left, so I want this upper left corner of this box to show up at 5.5 inches over from the top left corner of the page. Boom, and then I want this to be up to the very top of the page, so the Y value is going to be 0. And now you know that not only is this exactly the right size, it's exactly the right position as well. Okay, so let's fix this problem. The last thing you make in Illustrator is always going to be the topmost object. So how those objects stack on top of each other is called the stacking order. And so to change this is quite simple. You just mark the shape you want to rearrange. You go to the object menu, you pull down to arrange, and you go to bring to front or send to back. These two I don't use too often. So send to back, I want it to go all the way to the back. And there we go. That fixes the problem. All right, so let's make some type now. So I'm going to go up to the type box here, and I'm going to click on the T, which is the type tool. And then I go on and on in the how to create type video about how I want you to make your type. So again, don't drag a box with your type tool. Just click wherever you want the type to be, and that's called point type. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to click right here under Pickles 1. And that will drop this little placeholder piece of copy that's called Greeking. And you don't really have to do anything. You can just start typing and it will replace that text. So this is Pickles Romain. And part of this is I want you to tell me which class you're in. So I'm going to type in Comm 317. And on this left block, I also want you to tell me what some of your likes are. And so I'm going to type likes, and then let's see, what does Pickles like? I think it's dead birds, dead mice, and of course his dad. And that completes that block of type. Now I'm going to check this, make sure I haven't made any typos, and then I can go back and get my black arrow tool again. And you'll notice something kind of nice. When I click on this with the black arrow tool, it gives me that same bounding box that you got on the picture. So does that mean you can rotate it and resize it? Absolutely, same thing. Now again, if you resize it, make sure you hold that Shift key, or you're going to make some pretty bad, ugly type. So very important with type. You never want to distort type unless you have a very specific message you're trying to convey. I can rotate this too. You'll notice if I just get kind of near to one of those handles, it gives me a curve icon, and that means that I have the ability to rotate. So you don't really need to do that for this. If you want to play around, you certainly can. So that obviously is a very specific typeface, a very specific size. I would like to change those. If I look over here in the Properties window with this marked, you'll see that this is telling me in the character area that this typeface is Myriad Pro. That is the default typeface that Illustrator uses, so I don't want you using Myriad Pro because it just makes me think you're too lazy to change it. So choose something that you think is appropriate. So I'm going to click to drop the menu. Now this is going out of your screen, so I will just kind of tell you that I am scrolling up and down the menu. You'll see up here that it changes as I roll over it. And so I'm just going to use Libre Franklin because it's conveniently located. So I'm going to choose that. Now in terms of size, this is the size right here, 18.29. I can drop the menu here, and this gives me choices up to 72 point. I can go with the up and down arrows. I can also just type something in here. It doesn't matter how you do it. It's just, again, whatever you prefer. This one over here is letting, which is a fancy word for line space. In other words, how far is the distance from the baseline of this line to the baseline of the line underneath it. So the default it gives you is usually about 10 to 20%. They change this once in a while. So I'm just going to go up and down a little bit. So definitely feel free to play with the letting. But primarily change the typeface, change the size. Now you'll notice in my example that I actually had different weights of fonts and different colors of fonts. So I can change all of that by marking it with the arrow tool, but the thing with the arrow tool is it's all or nothing. You can't mark just single words or lines. And so to change just single parts of this, I'm going to click on the type tool again. And then just as if you're adjusting something in Word, you just drag over the part that you want to change. So I want to change Pickles Romain to be a bolder weight. So I'm going to pull down to bold here. I also want to change the color. So I'm going to go to the fill here. And I am going to choose a nice green right there. Beautiful.
Very.
And now I could have changed the weight and the color with the arrow tool, but it would have changed the whole thing, not just those particular words. I'm going to go here and I'm going to drag over the word likes. And you don't have to do this, but this is kind of a cool trick. If I go to the toolbar, I can get the eyedropper tool. And so with that marked, if I then come up here and I click on Pickles Romain, it will then make this be exactly the same typeface and size and color and everything as what I clicked on. And so that's kind of cool, if you don't mind my saying so.
Whatever.
Okay, so I'm going to pull this up into position. Now you'll notice something groovy is when I get to the edge of this, you see how it just kind of snaps to it? It also shows me that pink line. So that tells me that is exactly lined up with that. Now copying and pasting, there's a whole video on this. I'm going to use my drag method, which I really prefer. And so I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to hold the Option key. And remember, that is what will allow me to make a copy. So you'll notice I have the double arrows as I start pulling this. If I want to drag this in a straight line, remember that the constraining key is the Shift key. So I'm holding both the Shift, Option, buttons while I hold down the mouse button. And remember, very important that you let go of the mouse button first. Otherwise, you are just dragging the object over there. So let me show you. I'm going to let go of the keys first, then let go of my mouse, and you'll notice that this has been moved over here. It did not make a copy. So do that again. This time I will let go of the mouse button first, and we're pretty good to go. One problem is I can't see this type because the type is black and this is a black background. How do I fix that? Well, I'm going to get my type tool here, and I am just going to drag over that first line there, and I'm going to change the fill of that to be white instead of black. And then I'm going to go under here, and I am going to see if I can find those lines. Looks like I got lucky, and do the same thing. Boom. And then I need to change likes here to dislikes. And then his dislikes are, dogs, water, and dry food. He much prefers the treats and the wet food. And that is pretty much it for the layout. So this is the layout I'd like you to do. If you want to modify this and play with this a bit, you certainly can. This is generally what I want you to turn in. And so this isn't about creativity. This is really just about you learning how to do some basic mechanical things using Illustrator. Okay, the last thing I need to show you here is that in order to turn this in, and you will turn this in through Titanium, Titanium will only accept this as a PDF file. So if you try to turn in any other format, so if you try to turn in your Illustrator file or you export as a JPEG instead, Titanium's not going to accept it. You must turn in a PDF file. To do that is quite easy. Now, one thing I haven't done, I've been a very bad boy, is I haven't saved my file. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I'm just going to put this in the same location. So first of all, I'm just doing a save in Adobe Illustrator format. Again, there's a video on saving, so I won't belabor it here. And the second window, if you remember, all the defaults are going to be just fine most of the time. So click OK. And now that I've saved my file, now I can go ahead and do a save as to create the PDF. So remember, save as is when you want to make a copy of a file. And that's exactly what I want to do. Copy of this file, but in a different format. And so I'm going to go down here to Format and drop the menu. This time I'm going to choose Adobe PDF. Automatically changes the extension for you. Make sure I know where I'm saving this to, and then go ahead and click Save. It will again bring up a second window. Initially, you don't need to worry about this too much. You can just leave it at Illustrator default. But as we go through the semester, I will be telling you specifically how to save. So I'm just going to click Save PDF. You'll notice that it is now open here in Illustrator, the Pickles PDF. If you find a mistake, don't make the change in the PDF file. Close it, open your Illustrator master file, make the changes there, and then save another PDF. So that is it. For those of you who did not have class this week, this is going to be due before the class next week. Those of you who were in class this week and had the demo, this is actually due at the end of the day today. There you go. Hope this helps. I will see you in class.